How do you create a culture like that? Feel the safety of bringing ideas or new initiatives to the leadership?
Perspective exercise that you never master, but you can get better at.
People take ownership in their work. They're likely to have more pride.
You learn how to be more productive once you're a parent because you kind of have to be.
Steve, it's a pleasure to have you on Transform Your Workplace. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Excited to be here.
Well, congratulations on a new book. It's called Work is Fun: 7 Ways a Successful Ice Pop Company Makes Work Meaningful and How You Can Too. This is out April 1st. So by the time this episode's out, you will probably have a bunch of reviews, 5 stars, and like thousands, maybe millions of purchases. It's a really thought out book, a lot of storytelling, and it makes the ideas stick. So let's start. I want to start personal with you. You were laid off from AIG. You were sitting in Atlanta, traffic, broken car, and you had this, I think you even screamed in the car, and maybe somebody caught you doing that, but you had this realization that your life was kind of on that hamster wheel, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And you wrote, I imagine myself making this drive for 40 more years, and it made me sad.
Yeah.
So looking back, what did that moment, what did that awaken in you, and how does that drive the way you are today?
I think it was the beginning of what I will call a second phase of trying to have work be fun. I grew up wanting work to be fun. Thought maybe it couldn't be after seeing my peers go into this phase of, what we're maybe brought up thinking work should be like. And in that moment, I was still employed, and I was just frustrated. And the AIG story is, the headlines and why many people are aware of it. It's a very, very large insurance company, but most people are aware of it that are at least in the millennial age group from the Great Recession. And a lot of folks got laid off in 2008, 2009. So when I had that exact moment, I think it was maybe the moment in my brain that was triggering frustration around that. And that maybe was the climax of that frustration, but it took an external force, a Great Recession, for me to actually make that change, which is partly what I want the book to be, is
yeah.
Don't wait for these events to happen for you to start enjoying it.
You and I must be close to the same age, because I got out of college and started professionally working in 2007, 2008 time frame. And I remember that time, the Great Recession, and a lot of people were in the pits of despair. And there's a lot of people that would just stay in that rut and not climb out of that. But you took a different approach. You ended up starting your entrepreneurial journey. Tell me about that. What was the aha moment after the being laid off to you start this ice pop?
Yeah, I was probably among the lowest 10% at AIG in pay. And so I think I made it through several layoffs, which was
wow,
a time of reflection to be oh, this is probably coming. And slightly different than the topic of the book, but I had a kind of a, if insurance in these gigantic Fortune 100 companies are not a sure thing, there are probably no sure things out there. And I imagined myself at the end kind of sitting on my screened-in porch, trying to talk to my family about what I was doing and not really having a good story to tell. So I gave myself a 1-year timeline to try to do this popsicle business that me and my brothers had kind of dreamed about, but never really thought we would actually do when I got laid off. And I said, if it doesn't work out, I'm sure I'll be able to go back into insurance, or hopefully I will be able to, just as good of a chance as I would if I jumped right back in. So I took my $7,000 of savings. I thought that was a lot of money at the time.
That's a ton of money.
Turns out a grease trap to get installed at any of these spaces that I wanted was $30,000. So I took to the kind of paleta push cart that you may have seen if you've traveled to South America or Mexico or anything like that, or a lot of the US, to be honest. And we went to one special gas station corner, which is where I was hoping to set up, and it got weirdly successful. And weirdly successful in popsicle terms, is exciting, but it's not exactly financially that exciting. If you're selling $2.50 items, you have to sell a whole heck of a
A
lot of
lot,
them
yeah.
to kind of to make it where you're like you've made it, if you will. But it was immediately like something that I could see was gaining interest. Did I think I'd be doing it 15 years later? Maybe not at the time, but I'm grateful that I am now.
Why popsicles? Was this always a thing with you and your brother? Like back in the day, like growing up, did you do like
No,
popsicle
not growing up.
stands?
My oldest brother is an anthropologist, and
Okay.
he was doing his field work in Ecuador and Panama. And we would dabble on trips into Mexico, and the anthropologists are great to have as tour guides because they're just interested in communities. So we would go off the beaten path and try to find the cool things. And the paleta did kind of become a theme, weirdly enough, of trips when I was in college and after college when I would go to visit him. So we were just daydreaming about it. I mean, I can't quite think of the punchline to the joke, but an anthropologist. My brother was a prosecutor, so he was a lawyer and at the time, insurance analyst. Start a popsicle business. It sounds like the bad setup of a joke, but
You guys are like the most boring professions, and then you just jumped into popsicle biz.
Exactly. Yeah.
You said in the book that like the foundation of fun is knowing the story that you're living, and if your work lacks story, it's probably not fun.
Yep.
So, there's probably a lot of people listening who like whether they're stuck in just an okay job or there are people inside their organization who rely on them. They're just in an okay job and feel stuck. How do we begin to write a better story for that fun?
Well, I think the first thing is not writing a strategic plan. So a strategic plan is what you do next and then what you do after that and what you do after that. And that's maybe important to do, but you need to start with the end in mind. Where do you want to be? And then kind of work backwards from that. So when you think about it as a business or as an individual, you have to have like an inspiring but realistic vision of where you want to be. And then you kind of think about the next steps. And then those steps become, instead of like a slog and just not where you want to be, you look at them as a step to where you want to go. And what I feel like I had missed the boat on, if I had a time machine and could go back, I mean, maybe I wouldn't have ever started a popsicle company, but I don't think I was doing that when I was working at AIG. So a big piece of the book early on, I think that's valuable, is this is not a book that is everyone should go out and start their version of a popsicle company right away. It is think about what you want to be doing and then put in the effort to make work fun. And there's a lot of things you can do where you are right now that once you kind of have that end goal in mind, I think will make it a lot more fun. So
what does it look like to write a story? And like, I think you said, like when you're at the AIG time frame, or even before that, you probably didn't have a written down story or have it at least thought out. You were just sort of going through the days, as most of us do. But like, how did you begin to like rewrite the story and the vision for what you wanted? Like, what was your process?
I think I had that big kind of inflection point we started with where like I had like it wasn't like a panic attack officially or a breakdown or anything, but just like this
midlife crisis, a little too early.
Yeah, like a quarter life crisis, maybe. Yeah, and so I think I had that, and this was like a pushback against that, and I think that was like how I personally got to it, and I feel like that's one way that probably a lot of people will land there. I don't think it's the healthiest because it usually ends to like, it's like kind of dramatic. It's kind of like dramatic swings rather than like thoughtful swings, which is I think where we want to all be as humans. But I don't think so. I mean, to put it in perspective, like let's say I had decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur and written the story somehow of me wanting to do it while I still had that job. I think what I would have done differently is start to have a goal of like, how much do I need to save? Like, this is and I think people think about that a lot of times, entrepreneurs, like, how much do I have to save up? What are some things that I can like pay closer attention to here whether it's like how we're doing our corporate catering or how to write like a grown up email. All of these things that you still have to learn how to do in order to do that next piece. How to take ownership of different projects, how to learn about what can I learn about financials. So all of the things pretty much in business, which is what a lot of work ends up being, have some pretty common themes. And you can, if you're creative, I think you can figure out how to apply those to it. There's not too many managers that have the expectation that their team is going to work with them their entire life anymore. Mm-hmm. It's not a shocker if someone on my team walks up to me and says like, my dream is to be in film. I'm not like writing that person off and saying like, okay, I don't want to invest in this person anymore because their dream is not to make popsicles. So I don't know, a little bit of a tangent there, but that's how I would approach it and how I did approach it, which are kind of different. Yeah. The last thing I want to add that I think aligns with this, in case I don't get the question that I could answer it, is like the story doesn't have to end up being right. Like, and it probably won't be. Like, so we oftentimes don't write the story because we don't want to write the wrong story, but the wrong story is probably more directionally helpful for you than no story at all. I think that's an important piece too. Like, you don't have to hold yourself to this standard that if this isn't exactly what happens, I have failed.
I want to give people a reason to keep listening all the way through, because we're going to, a little cliffhanger, we're going to talk a little bit about your 2030 vision that you wrote in 2015. Great. And we'll see how much of that came true. So like, listeners, like, hang on. In chapter 2, you talk about these are the good old days. And I love that phrase because it grounds us in the present, whereas most people are either looking behind them or forward.
Yep.
You share some pretty rough, like, good old days stories too, like selling, melting popsicles at events and probably begging people to buy. Yeah. How do you take those moments that are really hard, but also cultivate joy through these like really tough seasons?
Yeah, I think it's just a perspective exercise that you never master, but you can get better at, in that a lot of the things that you're most anxious about, most worried about, or are the hardest, and we've heard this a million times, but you just kind of need to rehear it, is once you get through it, are going to also be the things that were the most transformative, the most meaningful, and the most fun. So those things are just inextricably connected. You can't really have one without the other. So I think that the awareness of that when you're going in, like for me, public speaking is still like uncomfortable. And I also, within like a minute after finishing, I'm like, that's great. I want to do that again. I think it's the same thing with, the stories in the book are like, the first time you sell a pop to somebody that you've made and you're charging like a retail price, it is a pretty intimidating thing, because I don't have any culinary training. I don't know. I have no idea what I was doing. And you're handing this person confidently handing this thing and be like, of course this is worth what you're paying for it. And I hope that you come back and buy them every week for the next 10 years or whatever, but you still feel that way. But it's such a fun process when it does work. And then when it doesn't work, reboot. You don't have that many other options. But I think more often than not, people do find success. I think we can be afraid of failures, but most people, if they're working hard, put the effort in, they're going to be successful in one way or another. Your honesty about work FOMO like really hit home for me, especially when you left a sports writing job like long time ago, probably too early. You were seeking a bigger paycheck and you're thinking that was the answer to happiness. What do you say to professionals that like maybe you work for you or ones that you talk to who are just constantly seeking that next thing when something right in front of them is probably what makes them happy? Yeah, I think it's just, it's so hard. I mean, it is the balance of really all parts of your life. You're always looking forward to something. I've got a 3-year-old right now and a 1-year-old. So like
You're in a tough spot, my friend.
I'm like, once my 1-year-old can like walk without just like immediately thrusting his head into a corner, everything is going to be great. But like, I'm sure, and you see all the memes and stuff on Instagram, like imagine yourself 90 and you have the chance to go back and be where you are now. Of course, I'm in like this amazing space, but I'm tired and
yes,
all the stuff. I mean, that's parenting. And then you have that probably with like your relationships with anyone, whether it's dating life or whatever. And work is no different. It's just like it's this path that has highlights that are like exciting to think about. But when you get to them, I mean, we've all read nearly every interview of like some uber successful exit.
Yep.
And the person doesn't feel any different on that day. There's not like our feelings can only be felt up to 100%. Like you don't have the chance to go up to 200%. So I think just enjoying where you are and realizing like, yeah, I want to go somewhere else. I've got a goal, but I've got to enjoy this because this is for sure what I've got. And it's happening. You don't want to miss it.
With having a 1 and a 3-year-old and running a successful company at the same time, like how do you blend work and life together?
I mean, for Popsicle Company, it's kind of easy because my 3-year-old thinks it's pretty cool. Like to go to an event, so like we
got bright colors in the office. Like let's go to Daddy's office.
we had I had never been to a Holy event, so we made a chai kulfi pop, which is like a chai ice cream for, and we had an event with the company that we collaborate with called the Chai Box. And so she invited her friends, and that I had to be there for work, obviously, but so that's like, I think that's like the most. And that was last weekend. That's like intentional work-life blend. Like, she couldn't necessarily be at all phases where I'm doing like the event planning or like we are doing product tasting, but like it was important for her to be there. And I did like kind of have that in my mind. I was like, this is going to be a fun part of this event. And hopefully some of like her preschool classmates can come and stuff like that. But as far as my work journey, like pre-kids, I've got a wife that works super hard, has an amazing job as well. Pre-kids, I've worked all the time, and that was kind of okay for that season of my life. And now I don't. And I kind of cut myself off. There's one day a week where my wife picks them up, and they kind of don't get home till like 7:30 or 8. So that's like my giddy grinding day. But like I also get home and like when it is 5 or 5:30 or whatever, when I get home and work on dinner and stuff, like it immediately also is satisfying. I both don't want to leave work and enjoy getting there. So I think recognizing the season you're in, I think you do kind of work well within constraints. A lot of people told me that like you learn how to be more productive once you're a parent because like you kind of have to be. You have like a lot of things you have to get done in a confined time. So you kind of don't ruminate over decisions quite as much. But yeah, there's a few choice times when you can blend, but the majority of it is figuring out how they can work together. Giving yourself grace. Like for me, if I do have to check an email after bedtime or whatever, like I make that up as an entrepreneur with like a lot of flexibility by being able to go on an extra long bike ride on a Friday morning. And, so I think just figuring out what works for you.
I think you're kind of touching on something too, like having a great partner at home that can help you, like support you, and you can support her.
Yeah.
But also like in the workplace too, like having like your team around you too, to like be able to take care of certain things. And there's going to be times where you probably need to bail and do appointments or be there for the kids. And the team's got it. They got your back. And just having that type of culture, like it's so valuable, right?
And for fun. Yeah. I mean, no one likes to feel like, again, going back to the parenting thing, and I think I was talking about it so much, but like pre-kids, I think I missed something as a manager because I felt I just didn't quite get it. Like,
Yep. I get that.
Your kid's sick. Like, okay. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, my kid is sick. Everyone, I'm going to tell everyone in the office.
You literally got to drop everything I
Yeah,
mean,
very
it's
good. So I mean, I think that's been an eye opener for me and help me be more holistic. And it kind of does make you wonder, like, what other blind spots do I have? Like, what other things am I not able to? Which is most things, you know. But I like how you said it. I mean, I think the team piece and the trust and like not feeling like you need to like, I don't know, make up a white lie as to why you're
yeah.
gone between 11:15 and 1:45 or whatever. You know, that definitely makes it all more enjoyable.
You wrote in the book about how ownership is free to take, and you tell this story about a guy named Justin who I created some sort of truck maintenance program just because it needed to get done. So he brought like this solution to you. How do you create a culture like that? Because I think for many people, they don't feel like they have ownership where they can like feel the safety of bringing ideas or new initiatives to the leadership team.
Yeah, I think it just starts with one chance that you see, like in a meeting, somebody saying like, okay, yeah, just do it. Let's see what's the worst that could happen. And then I think it snowballs. So I mean, I think starting with one, I think it's as easy as being in a meeting when you're going around and whoever the normal decision maker is, or however decisions are made in your organization, I guess, and someone's got an idea, and instead of like going through the full breakdown of pro, con, all the things, be like, yeah, let's go for it. I think, you know, we do that. The other example that we oftentimes talk about is just like the making of a popsicle flavor. Like, you know, stakes are not that high. Like if somebody wants to make we had this ube, which is like a yam, like a South Asian yam, and I'd never heard of it. Somebody come back from a trip, and they're like, I want to make an ube pop. So they made an ube pop, and for sure, like when they went out and sold that pop, it was far more exciting for them than to sell another cookies and cream or whatever we had been kind of peddling that they didn't have as much investment in, if you will. So I think just being honest about like from the leadership side, like, does it really matter if we do it exactly how I want? And then from the you know, the employee or the individual side, thinking about like, yeah, I mean, let's go. What can I volunteer myself for? That is reasonable.
Yeah.
Like if somebody says like, I want to learn accounting, so let me close the books this month. I mean, maybe I'm not going to be too excited about that unless you're like somehow also a CPA. But if you're saying something that it was like this truck log, like we were doing a pretty bad job at it. It needed to be done. He was like a car hobbyist. He liked to tinker, and it was a great fit. So I mean, I think that made it in the book because I'll never forget it. It was just like, this is better than anything I could have ever thought of. And I wouldn't have thought to ask him. And if I would have asked him, I should have thought to ask him, but I didn't. And it's better when you don't have to.
I love stories like that because it is true. It's like if people take ownership in their work, they're likely to have more pride. And you talk about pride in the work too, or in the book too. It's, you talk about how it's like, it builds this compounding interest in a lot of ways. For listeners for leaders who might be listening to this and want to build that pride that compounds the way you're describing it. How do we effectively do that? You know, I know a lot of organizations will throw like, let's do pizza parties and gimmicky stuff. And I think those things are fine, but like, is that going to transform your culture?
Yeah, I think ownership that we just talked about is a great first step because I think that's gonna speed it up. It's easier to be proud of like the things that that you have fingerprints on. And then another one that we already talked about, they all kind of, I think pride is the output that you're kind of going for. It's not something that you can just assign to people. So story, like the organizational story rather than like the individual story, is something that they need to understand. So, we talked about the 2030 vision. So we'll keep teasing it a little bit, but the idea that this vision is cool to them, at least bits and pieces of it are going to make them more proud as well. And I think, pride, I like to think of it this way as like, we all would love for our team to be incredibly proud of the company and the work they are doing. That is, I would say, the end result of doing a lot of this work.
You did say about pride, you said it's illogical, but it's important most of all. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think it's illogical because you will do things that do not make sense. Like, so from like a business standpoint, we now sell, I said $2.50 earlier, we now sell them for $4, and we have like a range of what a cost needs to make for us to be profitable. But you know, if we're making a pop that doesn't taste good and it's going to cost us 27 more cents to get it there, like, it is kind of illogical for us to do that. Like, we are now kind of operating a business to lose money. But pride will compel you to do those things. And I think over time, like, you would make the argument that like it's going to come back around. So I think there's just oftentimes where you just do the silliest stuff because of pride. Like, another example would be, we get a call out for a wedding, right? We get invited to a lot of weddings. We get a call out for a wedding. I can remember this happening more times than I'd like to admit. I'm at like a festival, or I'm working at a farmer's market, or something that's like, it's not a life event where somebody's going to remember it for the rest of their life.
Right.
And I get the call out, and then simultaneously, like 6 minutes later, I get the call from the wedding planner, and they're like, "Where are you?"
Oh no.
And I'm like, "Oh gosh, we got to figure that out." So like, the logical thing to do that instance is to say like, "I'm so sorry, like, we're not going to be able to make it to the wedding. Mm-hmm. Chris was sick, and da 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 da." What you do if you're proud is you, in a blink of an eye, say, "I'm heading there right now. I may be 13 minutes late. And instead of banana pudding, here are the 5 flavors I'm going to be able to bring." And you show up, you know? So I think that's what you do when you're really like proud, I guess, of what you're doing. So I don't know. Those are a couple examples that come to mind.
You talk in the book about play and how it has some serious advantages at work. And you took this, I can't remember exactly, I didn't write it down, but you took some monotonous and uninspiring task and you turned it into fun. I think it was through an Olympics thing. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when you make pops, all of it's pretty monotonous at some point, but the popsicle
seems so fun.
Popsicle sticks go into it's called a stick holder, pretty creative name.
Yeah.
And there's machines that do this, but they always break. And for whatever reason, year after year, we come back to we just drop the sticks. And usually it's like a good thing when someone's early on and they haven't learned a lot of the other stations, they end up there. Cause I mean, my daughter could probably do it. It would be kind of slow, but so we started to race. Like, you get pretty fast at it and you kind of get proud of like the strategy that you develop. Like, some people try to go one at a time really fast. Others like kind of systematically will drop 5 into the thing at a time. So we started to once a month have a race where we would do that. Other things that are like gamifying monotonous tasks, we would like pour the pops. We typically are like weighing them, but we would try to do it like by skill to see who could get closest into the exact weight of how much it would be. So just silly little things that like make that moment more fun, but it is kind of in the back of your head when you're redoing the task over and over. Like, how could I improve 5% on the Frosty Creek Olympics coming up? I think that's a little one for play. I mean, play is definitely like, I think when you see the title of the book, where everyone's brain goes to. And I think it's an important one. I think it's like typically like the most cringy or the most kind of uncomfortable for leaders to like suggest that we're going to do some sort of play. But maybe you could just reinsert the word lightheartedness, or like, anything in a meeting where it's just acknowledging like, this is not that serious. Mm-hmm. I think it's another way to think about it.
Years ago, and I've done this like 3 different iterations. I work at the same company for like 17 years. So we created this program called Passport to Zenium, and it was this gamified version of like everyday tasks. And there was like miles associated with each task. It's like a race around the world. And so I put people in teams and they would do stuff like get a Google review from a client, ask for a testimonial, get a case study, do a podcast with me, various tasks that like helped with the overall brand. People are super competitive. Having play and work is transformational. So I buy into everything you're saying.
Yeah, you made me think of it. I haven't even thought of this example till now. We have our franchisees have like a year-long bingo card.
That's awesome.
And the things on the bingo card are exactly like you're saying. It's like, write a marketing email. Wow. It's fun, but it is more fun if you're like, okay, now I've got to do this and this, then I'm going to get bingo or whatever. So yeah, those little pieces. I mean, I'm really inspired by a company called Zingerman's in Ann Arbor. And a lot of it is just like putting a poster up that says like, some goal and having some, doesn't even have to be fancy prize associated with it. And you can kind of come look at it and have some, I think if you can apply like some silliness to it, it makes the whole thing. And it's best if it's like an inside joke for that group, the 7 to 11 people that are involved with it or whatever. They think it's funny. It doesn't really matter if anyone else does. I think those are the best.
Chapter 6, you talk about teamwork and you kind of flip the script from most organizations. A lot of people like to do team building exercises, trust falls, but you highlight the importance of shared experiences, even if they're not great.
Yeah.
What's a moment at King of Pops when this thing came to life for you?
Yeah. So it's like, I think we have a lot of slingers that come back year after year, but for many of them, it's like a one and done. They got like a year in college before an internship or whatever. So it's kind of like this summer camp vibe. Like, I mean, they're not really the same age. It's like age 16 through 36, maybe. I don't know, 56. Who knows the age? It's a wide range, but it's kind of like a camp vibe. And we learned early on that the music festivals are, first of all, like these events that everyone just wants to do. It's like the holy grail of a King of Pops working is to get to go to Bonnaroo or Governor's Ball or one of the big music festivals. And they're kind of hit or miss. Like you either make a lot of money, like anything in life, you break even or you lose money. And it wasn't like where we wanted to spend all of our energy because it's a lot of logistics and all of that. But there was this underlying piece when we stopped doing them for a little bit where like the team was just not clicking as much. And what we realized was these groups, when we were doing them, we would maybe do like 4 to 6 a year. And Nick and I would go to a couple of them and sometimes we wouldn't go to any of them. That's probably when they were bonding the most. But they would come back from that group, from that trip, just a different group. Like they would be, a couple of them would then be hanging out individually. Outside of that, they would know they'd have like we were talking about before, a little inside joke. So like, it's basically the hardest popsicle selling job there is to go like to a camping festival, most of all.
I'm
like,
sure.
Fling pops for 12 hours and it's never good conditions. It's either too hot or it's a mud fest or, but it's always a story. And when you build a story with somebody that is, you're the biggest kind of decider of the fate together as a team, that team kind of undoubtedly will bond. So yeah, that's been a good kind of piece of the playbook that we make sure to bring back each year.
In the book you highlighted from the Pew Research Center, they decided that like half the workforce enjoys their jobs. But in your experience, like even fewer people seem to want to talk about it. So maybe that number's like even worse. For leaders who are listening to this, episode, how do they create a workplace people enjoy being at? Like, where do you suggest like action items just like to start first?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important, and this is, I'm not sure if this is the most helpful, but I think it's the truth. So I'll share it. It's a 2-way street. So if you've got an employee that is dead set on hating their job, like good luck. Like there's only so much that you can do. So I think that's like that's the one side of it, but it's a 2-way street. Like, so if an employee is trying to have fun and the employer is dead set on it not being fun, it's almost certainly not going to be fun for them as well. So I think like that's the reality. Whether that is the most actionable, since you're only one of those parties, take it for what it's worth. I think if you got to kind of be honest with yourself. But as far as the question, like if you're a leader and you're trying to get closer to that, I think talking the one that I think probably people don't do that much is talking about the story. People kind of assume that is a known piece. So like at AIG, I'm like I don't know what I am I know on the IQ spectrum, my mom didn't want to tell me I'm lower than my brother. So I think I'm in like the middle of the pack. But I'm smart enough to kind of know some stuff. But I could not really tell you. I knew what AIG did. And I was selling car insurance, and I was in charge of like helping them decide how to set the rate. But I believe there should have been a little bit more effort put into storytelling as to like, even if the goal was just to maximize profits, like paint that picture a little bit better for me to kind of understand what I'm doing. Because we assume that people either don't care or can't get it, or one of those two. But I think most people do kind of care. Like even if it's not saving the world, or even if it's not, getting to work with like Beyonce or something, like they still care about what they're doing. But you have to tell them the story. So I'd say I think that's the biggest one that anyone can really do. Yeah.
Steve, you in the book, we teased it a little bit. You end with a vision of 2030. You wrote this in 2015. So I want to know how much of this came true, which parts of the journey are you most thankful for, and even highlight some struggles along the way that maybe shaped the journey a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. I think so I read the vision quarterly to our team or with our team. And then when we're onboarding a franchisee, we read it so I'm doing it a couple times a month for that. And there's a little bit of it that is always awkward because we're 13 years in. There's some things that are definitely not happening that are written in there. But we still stick with it because it is a data point of kind of where our hearts are. And we continue to share it. So that's still kind of where our hearts are, even though we only have one farm instead of a regional farming operation. My condo is not available for people to sleep at, even though it was when I wrote the vision. I intended that to be the case for like visiting employees could crash there. I mean, so all these things evolve, but if you were to just get the feeling that you get from reading it, that we are still heading right towards. So I think a good example of that is like, we talked about employees starting businesses with their own ideas and being equity partners in that way. And I kind of pushed for that for several years. I mean, kind of like, hey, what's your idea? What do you want to do? What are we going to work on? And it just wasn't really in the cards. But when we started franchising as like our COVID pivot, our backs were up against the wall, and we needed to figure out like how to continue to keep the business rolling. And people were interested at that point in time. They'd always kind of have been, but we'd said no. They were interested in getting a cart and selling in their neighborhood. And there were like little neighborhood events happening. So that worked really well. And then as we were going through the vision, like, maybe employees can be franchisees. So we now have like an 80% discount for employees that want to we call it a cartrepreneur, but want to be a cart franchisee in their dream location. So we've had 2 employees take us up on it. We got one in Savannah and one that's in one of the neighborhoods around Atlanta. And so it isn't what's written, but it's directionally accurate. So I think that's the feeling. I do think we're at the point, Zingerman's taught us this. I shared about them a little bit earlier, but we're at the point where like, I do think we need to kind of rewrite it, just because you don't want to actually get to like the day that's in the vision and be like, this is awkward. But I think we'll do another one, probably 5 to 10 years out, with kind of the new state of the business and all of that. But it's been really valuable for us, and something we still believe in strongly.
Steve, fun conversation today. I really appreciate you coming on. Your new book is called Work is Fun: 7 ways a successful ice pop company makes work meaningful and how you can too. There's lots of awesome stories in this book that I encourage people to go get it. What's the best way for people to either connect with you, buy the book, learn more about what you're up to?
But 3 ways. LinkedIn is probably the social media platform I'm most active on. King of Pops is coming out with a pop called Work is Fun. So who the heck knows what that might taste like, but that'll be coming out, and I'm doing in-person and virtual speaking engagements if people are trying to kind of infuse some of these ideas into their workplace. So you can check that out at kingofpops.com. And then if you just want to look at kind of the family work-life blend, Instagram's good, Steve Carse. So those are the 3 I would suggest, but I'd love to connect with folks. If you do get the book, where great books are sold, I'd love to know what you think and would love to connect with you for sure. And thank you, Brandon, very much. It was a really fun conversation.
A lot of fun. My guest today has been Steve Carse, the CEO of King of Pops and the author of Work is Fun. Steve, thanks for coming on.
Adios. Have a great day.